Hello and welcome to another science post. This one is on the mystery of flight. A recent headline from Scientific American proclaimed that physics theories fail to explain airplane flight. Really? But the article is behind a paywall, so I must die without knowing the secrets it holds. Why must every science headline claim to upend everything, revolutionizing everything? Is it because of paywalls? Are we really that desperate for novelty? Or desperate for a paradigm shift, perhaps? I think I know why airplanes fly, so I will explain it to you without being behind a paywall. How do airplanes fly? The intuitive answer is turbulence makes things act lighter. When you are floating on your back in a swimming pool and you don't move your legs, they will sink. This is the same reason that a golf ball with little divots around it will fly higher than a golf ball that is smooth. The divots increase the turbulence around the ball. Turbulent air or water acts heavier than still air or water. And when the surrounding substance acts heavier, things within the substance will act lighter. Saying that an airplane flies because it pushes a current of air down is rather incomplete and misleading, because that downward draft curls in on itself and forms a mass of more turbulent air that pushes up. So that was the intuitive answer. That's not physics according to many types of physicists. You don't have a physics answer unless you have a quantitative model. Of course, there are a large number of quantitative models from fluid dynamics that treat all of the issues I just described. And you can always approximate the system. That's what engineers do. And why this article in Scientific American claimed that we don't have a single unified theory of airplane flight, it's just kind of baffling. The technical answer to this question has been known since 1738, and it's called Bernoulli's principle. An increase in the velocity of a fluid occurs simultaneously with a decrease in pressure, and the air on top of the wing travels faster with less turbulence. But how does this answer and the intuitive answer, how do they fit with the answers you will find just by Googling something on the internet? As I have found in many topics, internet educations are often very bad in physics because teachers today, somehow a lot of them don't know how to use the heuristics available. Children are taught that airplanes fly because the shape of the wing, or an airfoil, causes the air above to move faster and exert less pressure than the air below the wing. And on my blog post, I have a typical diagram used to teach this concept. But I find this diagram incredibly confusing and misleading if you think about it from a child's perspective. It's the sort of educational material that causes large numbers of students to rebel and just say, I don't understand this, because it's not explained with concepts that people already understand. It's not correct if you think of the speed of the air in terms of turbulence. For example, fighter planes and paper planes fly upside down, so the shape of the wing can't be that critical for flight. And you will confuse students with this explanation because the students will imagine the air below the wing being more turbulent and swirling around in circles much faster than the air above the wing, yet the textbook tells them that the air moves slower. And then they have to understand the difference between local velocity and then the average velocity across the wing. It doesn't need to be that complicated. The student will be especially confused if they have not yet learned the difference between speed and velocity. The child will ask herself, why should the air move faster above the wing? A lousy teacher might explain this in terms of the path length the air has to travel, but a child would see no reason for the air to travel faster above the wing. They are being encouraged to accept this concept on faith, and many will rebel against such instruction. Perhaps before being introduced to the airplane wing, the child would first need to understand why spinning balls act more lightweight than non-spinning balls. And here you need a picture of like a tennis ball, for example, and a description of Bernoulli's principle. A child would be able to visualize how the spin of the ball increases the velocity of the air relative to the lower surface while decreasing the velocity of the air relative to the upper surface. When air moves faster relative to a surface, there will be more turbulence, of course. So the spin of the ball increases the turbulence near the lower surface and decreases the turbulence near the upper surface. Turbulent fluids are more viscous, heavier, and they exert more pressure than less turbulent fluids. That is why the spinning ball rises. Yet, what does the textbook picture imply? It looks like the opposite of the explanation I just gave. All of the arrows are reversed, confusing the majority of students. The textbook explanation tells the same abstract, non-intuitive story as for the airplane wing, in terms of local velocity. I think this explanation bypasses the actual mechanism and relies on an abstract concept that 95% of students will conclude makes no intuitive sense. The 5% who claim it makes intuitive sense have either confused intuition with abstraction, or they are placing their faith in historical precedent and group consensus while pretending to understand something that they don't understand. This style of thinking is very prevalent within the physics community and physics instruction. And this is why so many students reject physics. The discipline only selects for people who do not rebel when a concept is converted into an abstract form that has no intuitive meaning. This need not be the case. It is possible to explain physics in language that preserves both abstraction and intuition. Jettisoning intuition like so much ballast will eventually come back to haunt the discipline, as physics without intuition tends to mystify things that are not mysterious. I recently saw a YouTube video from a very good site called Veritasium, in which the man throws a spinning ball off of a bridge, and you see how it doesn't fall straight down. And yet, without an intuitive understanding of the system, people look at that and think it's mysterious, and then they fall back on abstraction and tell themselves that with the abstraction they understand it, even though they haven't understood it intuitively. This style of thinking, I think, is the reason that we ended up with quantum mechanics, as it is currently taught, with bizarre depictions of atoms, and with a universe that expands at greater than the speed of light, even though nothing can travel at the speed of light, or travel faster than light. In all of these cases, you have bizarre coordinate systems that detach a person from their intuition, and that excludes a lot of people who are smart, but who just don't like spending so much time with a nonsensical interpretation of what they're looking at. So back to the airplane wing. If the shape of the wing is not the most critical concept to understand, perhaps the angle of the wing is. Every child has seen a paper plane swoop up into the air and then drop straight down. Many children learn that if they put a paperclip on the nose of the plane, they can keep this drop from happening. But most kids don't understand why this works. When the drop occurs, one says that the plane has stalled. As the angle of the wing increases, the plane will go up faster because the turbulence below the wing is increased when the air hits the surface of the wing more directly. But if the angle is too great, then the turbulent air beneath the wing curls around the back of the wing and the plane drops. Now, if I just Google this concept and find a diagram to explain this, I get a really weird explanation in terms of turbulence above the wing and separation of flow. It has none of those of the description that I used, which had a strong connection to intuition. So, I mean, my explanation made perfect sense if you think of why a pilot has to lower flaps when the plane lands. And I have a picture of that, but also there you get this weird explanation in terms of separation of flow, which, well, when I was a student, I rejected these sorts of explanations because they sounded stupid. When the plane lands, the airspeed is low and the nose is up high. This is a position that would cause a stall unless the flaps are not put down in order to prevent the turbulent air beneath the wing from curling around the tail of the wing. This is an explanation that makes perfect sense to me. I hope that this answer to this question of how airplanes fly, that it showed you that many things in physics seem confusing because they are expressed in multiple contradictory languages. One language preserves your intuition, and then the other language, which is often more closely tied to the mathematics, it has no connection to intuition. And what I've found is a fun way to develop intuition is to build and discuss a thing called a whirlybird. And there's a link to how to make them. They're just little pieces of paper that when you drop them, they spin around. And it really makes you think to try and understand how this works. Where are the forces? What's going on there? And if you can visualize that, you are actually doing much better than the majority of physicists today who don't even try to visualize it. They just try to create a mathematical tool or a simulation that does it all for them, but they don't actually understand it. Thank you for watching this video, and please tune into my next one. They'll be a little bit less pedantic and technical than this one. This is one of the more technical ones.